Persona 4 is important for a lot of reasons, but number one on that list is its cultural significance. You know, to the people. This entry alone commands an armada of fans who produced thousands of memes, cosplay, all kinds of stuff. I guess you could say it foreshadowed the tsunami 5 brought. When the Fighter spin-off came out, I remember Justin Wong picking it up, and yeah, no big deal, it's what he does, but it means the Persona 4, between fans, sales, and broader appeal, reached across multiple geek and gamer spheres all at once. So, thanks to the memes and cultural awareness, I've been spoiled on the villain since 2013, and in a murder mystery game, a really endearing experience about your happy little friend group and the mystery they set out to solve. It's really the first time I've had a bad experience with the Persona fanbase. You know, setting aside that Adachi simps exist. And I never really cared all that much about spoilers, but I'm about to do it myself, so if you're trying to preserve the experience, we're gonna talk about everything, but I'll warn you again later. Like before, Persona 4 has some objectionable material, this time related to its handling of a couple characters that are, at best, engaged with poorly by the writing and other characters. But to make it clear up front, those moments are few, just really, really loud, and I ended up having a lot of fun with the game. In fact, I don't have a guiding thesis or anything for this video, but this. Persona 4 felt better than 3, though something feels off, something's nagging at me. So I'm gonna sling shit at the wall and maybe we'll make a pretty picture, you know, take something away at the end. Guess we'll see. And one last thing, thank you to Adin Chosa for access to the game. It means a lot, man. It's worth noting that I'm playing Persona 4 Golden here, the enhanced port released on the PS Vita and eventually PC. Now I say enhanced, but many players have strong words regarding some of the additional characters and scenes, and I did my best to figure out what's what, but overall I'm critiquing the Golden experience because in terms of sheer dissemination potential via Steam, it's the more relevant version of the game. What's easy to forget, at least for dump-ass guys like me, is Persona 4 was developed for the PS2, right after 3. Yeah, it's crazy in retrospect. Like, before ever touching this game, I assumed it was PS3 exclusive, so there'd be a neat little lineage with the home consoles, and it was apparently built with a similar budget to 3. That means characters across games share models and animations. Most of the shadow designs from 3 get reused, enough that searching up a specific enemy on the wiki will yield a Persona 3 and Persona 4 stat block, and like 3 before it, they're still fat-phobic. Persona 4's individual rooms and areas get a lot of screen time, and that's not to say the game's cheaply made or they didn't fill it with original assets. If anything, it's the first time Persona, to me, felt like one of its games was a proper sequel, a new novel take on an old concept, and the payoff's in the setting. Persona 4 is one of those rare sequels that show the devs at their best, analyzing their old work, drawing conclusions, and applying them going forward. For the most part. I'll show you what I mean. In Persona 3, you were let loose, yet leashed in part of a city, went to school, went shopping, but if you lived in Tokyo, you wouldn't just go to the one karaoke place in town, yeah? You'd shop around a bit. Like, I get sticking to the one arcade, you know, don't want to run into OG thugs like Daigo Umehara. I hear that guy raging demons people IRL, but obviously they're not gonna fix up a bunch of extraneous assets for verisimilitude or whatever. Not on that budget, so the mall's the mall, and that's that. But when the sequel was planned, I imagine they thought of this and figured a small-town setting would be the spin Persona needed. Suddenly, there's a really valid reason to only visit certain places and talk to a handful of people. Suddenly, all those places start to feel like home, all those people start to feel like family, and all those moments become memories. That's Inaba. It's kind of amazing. And that type of conceptual shrinkage from city to town applies to the premises as well. Your parents aren't dead this time, they're mostly unmentioned, probably a little rough around the collar, never call or anything. In terms of the narrative, they're functionally dead, but they're not dead. Important distinction. You're still uniquely powerful, right? Immediately capable, versatile, silent, the sister complex kingpin of steel. What the f***? Intentionally left void for the player to fill. You don't need to face your evil half to access Persona power, because you Narukami, have no crisis of character, because the character's blank. The antagonist isn't some grand existential threat this time. You're not ending depression. It's a small-town murderer. The danger is contained. And so every element is made more intimate, every problem more immediate, and every success more impactful. It complements the drama of the plot very well, and over the course of 80-some hours, transposes you like very few games do, directly into the setting. And everything else is Persona 3. You play day to day, do what you want with your time, manage your social links, your social stats, your teachers, whoop, No. And play the JRPG when it's available. And sure, there's little tweaks to the greater system, things we'll talk about, but overall, any Persona 3 player will instinctively know how to manage 4. Regardless of any similarities, it would be a bad look to rerun the same story, so a lot of the rules were changed. Most plot differences between entries are contrivances, right? Things that simply are, so the game can happen. Like in 3, the school turned into a gigantic tower at night, so the player had something to deal with and level up in. And you can't do that premise again, so in Inaba, there's an evil TV channel. Not really, it's just funnier that way. Called the Midnight Channel, available only at midnight, and it tends to show troubled townsfolk acting strangely.
Why does this have big hate crime energy?
People who end up on the Midnight Channel wind up dead. This all happens only after multiple days of rain and after fog sets in. Also, Persona-sensitive people can crawl through TVs into the Midnight Realm. Okay, this is, without an ounce of hyperbole, the single most high-concept, incomprehensible plot setup to anyone older than 50. And I've played a lot of weird anime schlock, okay? Not that this is schlock, it's just a bit of a mess. And it makes total sense as you play the thing. It's intuitive enough to grasp, but sometimes people I know watch my videos, normal human beings, and I think they're worried. You know, a lot of Persona 4 is weird, but Inaba isn't, so let's start there. It's a brilliant setting for a JRPG, just a small town in the countryside, and it's something you don't often see in games as the whole of the setting, right? Most of them span regions, worlds. It opens up a lot of unique opportunities and interesting design potential. I love small towns. Lots of stuff happens in small towns. Like nothing, which is perfect for a young social recluse to hack Pokemon Platinum and play Twiwi. Even when I taught in Korea, the city I stayed in was a lot like Inaba, just a little bigger, caught between old world tradition and corporate era expansion. There was even a department store just like Junes, and drunk salarymen getting schmucked on cheap corner store shit. The nostalgia's hitting. It's a lot less glamorous than the big city, and that's reflected in the town's faces. I mean, seriously. Persona 3 had some funny-looking folk, couple weirdos, whatever, but so many. A P-Force characters from social links to shopkeeps to party members look like people. Dude's meme about that 5-head, but you tell me that ain't real. And that's literally just a young mother. Look, she even hates her kid. You don't want to talk about that time I worked at daycare? I know, I can hardly believe it myself, but you know, that is not a trope. Even the more bizarre characters capture that off-kilter undercurrent of small-town life, you know, the secrets we imagine about the most plain-presenting people around. The kind of things that become urban legend, like Happy Harry, the toothless bum. It's disarming, makes the player complicit with the more outlandish things like the old weapons shop. I really appreciate how they handle the aesthetics of the town, especially in comparison to 3. Originally, I described the city as having a smooth appeal, and for the sequel, where so many things come under the microscope, where conceptual shrinkage is the prime directive, the grain in every texture is made visible. They've highlighted the hundreds of details that make up any single shot. It's a lot more visually busy, but you're meant to absorb the city in full. It's such a smart way to handle art direction with the general change of course between entries. And all that gritty realism, that grainy charm is offset by this opulent, blaring graphic design. You turn on the game, holy shit! Look, I know the original Persona 4 didn't have all the bells and whistles that Golden sprung for, but it was just about as sharp, and man, I could play games until the end of time, and I don't think I'd come across such an appealing, modern, retro aesthetic. And it's especially smart when you realize that yellow's a bit of a danger color to the human brain, and 4 specifically uses this tone and this aesthetic in the Midnight Channel, away from the pastoral Inaba. When you and your friends are diving through televisions to beat up monsters and play hero, it's when the game is properly active, and it's all conveyed visually. I am dangerously erect. I could write a dissertation on the breadth of Persona's visual genius, but that's shooting out of the scope a bit. Though I'll add that the various Midnight Channel dungeons, which all represent the struggles of the characters trapped within, are exceptionally on point visually, highly varied, blows anything Tartarus did out of the water, but we'll talk about him later. Your party's a mixture of Inaba lifers and out-of-towners. You got the spunky girl, her best friend, and proper Japanese woman. That's what they're going for, not my personal comments, to be clear. You've got the local tough guy, the bigot, the retired starlet, the young genius detective, getting a little weird here, and Oh, fuck. I'll give him credit. I like that each character is unique, fulfills a specific role, that even when the characters don't feel right at home in the setting, there's a reason for that, whether because they're from out of town, trying really hard to be a certain way, or in Teddy's case, because he's from the Midnight Channel. No matter what you think of them at a glance, they're all worthwhile to one degree or another. There's no escaping their charm when you help them work through their personal traumas, when they're given a mountain of screen time and endless interactions, when they're casually inviting your little sister Nanako to hang out. I can't with this game, man. If real life was even a fraction this pure and warm, how could you ever hate this?
Let's be mermaids!
I'm not a dub hater. For real, I did apologetics for Charlotte, okay, and most of it's pretty good. Troy Baker absolutely kills the kanji role, etc., but sometimes the new voice work, even when it's better overall, can grate a bit.
My trial of the dragon!
Did you chill out? So the setting's good, the characters are appealing, and like you'd expect, the music kicks ass. Never really had trouble scoring any of these videos. If anything, the only major points of aesthetic contention come down to a minor change from 3, and a conceptual issue exacerbated by Golden's additions. Let's deal with the minor change first. What is the difference between this persona and this?
Ooh, I look fierce.
Persona 3 has been referred to as edgy for a long time, and for fairly obvious reasons, I guess. I mean, yeah, there's no doubt that a game about shoving a fake gun in your face to literally blow your power into the world is gonna be looked at as at least mildly edgy. But it's not that bad, man. Teenagers do the finger trigger all the time, and it's not like any character jams an evoker down their throat and chokes on it. It's all done pretty tastefully. And every character does it uniquely as well. Yukari's still unsure about hers, and that hesitation is built into the animation. Akihiko's been around the block and simply pulls the trigger. Junpei's a show-off and really leans into it. The protagonist, immediately and uniquely capable, casually spins into it. Their personalities are built into the way they access their power. In Persona 4, there's no guns, just glasses.
See, these are the kind of analogies I love about video.
Characters access their powers by spilling their traumas, facing and accepting their worst selves. But the Midnight Channel's riddled with fog, and you need special glasses to see anything, so Teddy hands you a pair and boom, you can actually hit things and be useful. In fact, the glasses aren't even necessary to activate persona power. They just grant visibility, so in combat, characters often adjust their glasses or just emote. And it's not some enormous problem, but I'm sure some older fans miss that heavier imagery of teenagers shooting themselves. And it ties directly into the second issue. Somewhere along the broad scope narrowing from 3 to 4, the game shifted tones, probably because it fit better with the setting. I mean, come on, Sakurin's small-town friend group handles local murderer? No matter how you slice it, that's nowhere close to the encroaching apocalypse. The game's a lot more cutesy overall, and while it fits the setting and the scenario in general, it gets annoying how comfortable the writers are with assigning overdone character quirks to every single party member, and how often they come up. I don't mind that Yukiko's supposed to be all straight-laced and instead cracks up over the dumbest stuff. I don't mind that Kanji can't stop putting on the tough guy act because he's so insecure. But every time Yosuke makes his friends uncomfortable with his constant perving, every time Naoto says some shit like indubitably or just so, I want to throttle the writers. Because for every quirky character trait, for every running gag, for every weird cliche ripped out of the shonen anime culture cache, I feel the soul of something so good and pure die on the filler hill, on the writerly mound of mediocrity. Persona 4 is the first Persona game that I genuinely think gets far too friendly with the shonen anime tradition. It reads so often as deeply unserious, which should be fine, you know, it's Inaba, it's quiet and things are getting kinda heavy, so we need energetic, supportive friend characters to offset that narrative burden. We need troubled dreamers that'd think, yeah, I will crawl into a TV and risk my life for the sake of adventure. We need a Scooby Squad or whatever, and really, most of it is inoffensive in general. But I was warned that Persona 4 Golden made a point of flanderizing its characters, stretching their tropes out as flat and one-dimensional as possible, and man, they weren't kidding.
Only people have human rights. At least it's funny.
Still, it's mostly palatable, and many additions were helpful. Since we're already talking about Inaba and its inhabitants, let's move into progression, social stuff, and time. You advance in Persona 4 in the same way as 3, but time is slightly stricter. That's the short of it, and it's palpable, even considering Golden's additional calendar space, so you're forced into a walkthrough if you want everything, and frankly, like I said before, I don't think that suits the spirit of Persona, or the ways it makes players reflect on themselves and their place in the world. And it definitely doesn't fit the idyllic setting. It's a valid way to play, mind you, but Inaba ceases to be yours when the walkthrough is at the wheel. I mean, when did role-playing stop being the draw to RPGs? Is it just about ticking boxes, upping numbers, collecting shit? Look, you might get to embody a 6-foot hot boy in-game, but you don't get another chance in life, so make the most of what you got. This video is sponsored by Buttaholic. What have I done? Progression is so much stricter because the number of social links is increased, particularly in Golden, and 2 additional social stats were added as well. In 3, social stats dominate a lot of the player's time early on, depending on how they're playing, I guess. And in 4, the issue is compounded by several aggravating factors. First, they took something simple and complicated the whole process, right? Before it was movies, karaoke, the arcade, cafe, library, a lot of really clear and easy options to boost points. 4 gives you a few study locations for knowledge, but many of the others lack immediate and consistent boost options, either because you need to unlock jobs to up one stat high enough to take another job to max a stat quick enough to have time for social links, or because you're stuck reading books with no immediate payoff that suck up multiple time blocks with no guarantee of a stat level up. It's frustrating right away because unlike 3, there's no obvious flowchart for these things if you've never played before and refuse to follow a guide. It's nice to include jobs though. I worked a ton in high school because I had to make sure I could pay off my degree I'm now making expert use of. It makes sense you'd work young in a more traditional small town with fewer opportunities, and it gates some of the more esoteric social links too, freeing up time for your immediate friends and family, which I think is helpful. The game occasionally trickles social stat points to the player during social links. Occasionally a character will study with you, increasing your bond while boosting knowledge. And if you stick to certain books like the study guide, grinding social stats becomes much more efficient. It's just hard to get a grasp on. So the first time player probably doesn't know what's best, tries as hard as they can, and ends up inefficiently mixing social link time with social stat boosting time. And that's not a problem on its own. The player still owns their playthrough. They still have choices. But I imagine it sucks for the people who didn't realize that several social links are time sensitive in a game that makes a point of competing for your time. So, hope you ground up them Nanako, Dojima, Adachi, and Marie links in time, or suck farts, dumbass. You idiot. You didn't know something? What the hell is wrong with you? It's even more frustrating that the Nanako and Dojima links in particular require high expression and courage at different points to efficiently work through. And with the time crunch, it's rough. Man, the game knows it's on a strict schedule. It knows this, and frequently whisks you away to a campground, or a vacation, or worse, free labor for Yosuke, so it can do a comedy routine or a character building moment. It knows you can miss maxing important character links, and dipshit the Hedgehog will still call you up asking for help at his store, to which you obviously refuse, then get pressed into service by the game anyway. Why'd you even offer the choice? Why am I not getting paid for this? I get that it's supposed to be endearing and give the characters more room to act, but even Ebihara's first date doesn't take up a time slot. You're telling me Ebihara is more worthwhile than Yosuke? Okay, it's true, but you shouldn't say it. So how are the links? I mean, a lot of what you'd expect. More compartmentalized sub-stories, and a lot of them get eclipsed by the general plot because, hey, murder mysteries are interesting. Again, not commenting on all of them because I don't think there's systemic value in that pursuit, but some are really cute. Nanako is the purest child I've ever seen in a game. I actually really like the character. That's new. It's rare for a kid to be voiced that well, portrayed so endearingly. Huge win. Huge dub. Dojima was rewarding to work through as well. Troubled dads just come off as infinitely more sympathetic than any teenager. Like my friend group IRL is headed to this in 10 years. Rest in peace. It's important that these are plot characters. I wanted to get more out of them and use their social links to do that, which is probably the ideal use of the system. So many links get started because, well, I got nothing better to do, or I was already here, or they look neat, and that's not nearly as compelling. Adachi and Marie both have links in Golden, and they're both fairly important characters, Marie being an exclusive addition to Golden. I also took these links when I could because they were relevant. I guess I got the sense that I should get as much from them as possible because it's a murder mystery. I don't know who's getting killed next. I want to know what's going on with the relevant players, and like Derek the soccer guy and the pedophile nurse probably aren't involved. I thought Shoes was interesting because I imagine he's going through what a lot of the weirdo gifted burnout kids playing this are, but otherwise, most side characters didn't really strike me. Except Ebihara. This character gets memed a lot, and frankly it reminds me of the Yukari situation, like, dear God. this femoid didn't immediately slort my and yeah, she comes off rough out of the gate, but it's one of the only links, and side characters for that matter, with any degree of nuance and personality, who change and grow in a way that almost feels organic. Their link diverges into two paths. You can actively screw it up. It's challenging, like actual people. And in a game that's not really interested in your input, it's kind of nice. It's the connoisseur's link. Stay pissed, boys. Now, the party links are important because they're parceled with really potent mechanical benefits. Yosuke, Chie, Yukiko, Kanji, Rise, Teddy, Naoto. These links boost their corresponding personas' levels, grant new skills, and eventually evolve their personas, and a second time in Golden with 11th rank links, basically. They're made to be important, and that's great. Yukiko, Chie, Teddy, and Rise get to go on their little arcs, become better, stronger people. I don't have a lot to say because they're only meaningful if you experience them yourself. So I'm gonna take this time to bitch about Yosuke and the writers. Yosuke's a somewhat sympathetic character. I don't think he's all that bad, really. His whole purpose is to be protagonist number 2, speak for the player because they're silent. But there's this other guy in your party called Kanji, who's got some conflicted feelings about his sexuality, and they're made manifest on the Midnight Channel for everyone in the party to see. So, naturally, Yosuke is really kind and supportive to this troubled young person. Hey Kanji, are you still gay? You're still gay, right? I don't know about all that gay stuff, man. I'm pretty uncomfortable with you shoving your gayness down my throat. No homo. Hey Kanji, would you be offended if I called you my fruit basket? Kanji, stop acting gay. 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 I have never wanted to strangle someone so hard in my life. Shut the f up, you stupid f***ing idiot. He's clearly uncomfortable. He's clearly another human being. Shut the f up. It drives me insane. You can comfort the guy yourself, but the game makes you complicit at other times. It wants you to be in on the joke, especially when all this is coming from Yosuke, player 2, basically, and it just ain't funny. It sucks so much. People get pissed about Yukari calling Junpei stupid enough that he got mad about it and told her to stop. Y'all better be ready to burn Yosuke at the stake. Even in his link, he doesn't apologize for this stuff. Even by the end of the game, he doesn't apologize. It sucks so bad. It's worth noting that there's something of a push to rehabilitate this character because of a lot of conjectural factors. Things like scrapped content involving Yosuke having a crisis of character, as it were, regarding his sexuality. And yeah, that evidence exists, but all we have left is this product, and that's that. This kind of dovetails with Naoto, so let me highlight the situation. Naoto's of the female sex, wants to be male, and presents as the male gender. Now, I haven't lived the trans experience, and really it's not my place to overstep here. This game was written in a time long before trans issues became common public discourse. I mean, I don't remember meeting a trans person in my small hometown until like 2014. And this was all written prior to its 2008 release in Japan. I don't think the writers had any intention of dropping commentary on a social issue that exploded years after, but looking back on the link in Naoto's arc today changes the perspective a bit, especially when they added so much for Golden and might have rewritten the thing in some key places. Basically, it ends with Naoto accepting womanhood as her true self and casts her actions as running away from the truth, which is definitely in line with a Persona game and how they've handled character struggles, but it lines up so awfully nowadays. It reads as anti-trans sentiment, and that's kind of exacerbated by the frequent stumbles the writers have made and continued to make going forward. I'm less inclined to be charitable about this stuff. I think the grossest part involves Naoto folding to the player's interest during the romance route of her link, which just doesn't sit right with me. I mean, that's terrible. That's a fetishization of the character, not an affirming celebration of their individuality, like these links are supposed to be. Man, what is it with Persona and like a lack of tact in general? I'm not asking for an inherently puerile work, but why is everyone so obsessed with perving on their friends all the time? It's not very friendly. You even get forced into it. There's at least 2 scenes where you have to make some kind of comment, even if you're not dating the character. But I'm a woman respecter, got the license and everything, and I'm a little tired of being told what to say. I kept telling people that the writing struck me as enjoyable but trashy, and I think I know why. What's also annoying is Persona 4's failure to evolve regarding social links, and in some cases its active regression from the previous system. Characters acted something like real people previously and could get annoyed with you, and you could reverse your social links, but that system doesn't exist anymore. It still happens with some characters, 2 to be specific, but that's just a quirk of those links, not a broad feature. You can still piss off romance options if they catch you with someone else, so Yukiko, abracadabra, Terran Rend, I'll smash your heart when I call you friend. The one feature I hated in 3 was the hidden points across all social systems. You never know how many points you need to advance any stat or link unless you're counting and know what boosts what by how much, which makes unguided time expenditure inherently inefficient. And hey, it's on theme, idyllic small town life and all that, and they don't want players peeking behind the curtain. I get it, but every time I go to talk to Dojima, who isn't getting free friendship points for me acing all my exams, and isn't getting random extra friendship bonuses like everyone else because he's got a job and whose link ends early, well, I end up sucking up time blocks with wasted social link attempts that go nowhere. And not just with him, it's a lot of characters. That whole point system is offset if the player is equipped with a persona of the arcana corresponding to the link. But man, between low availability for certain arcanas, limiting persona slots, it's hard to keep those bonuses flowing. Okay, I spent a precious moment with Nanako. Sorry I wasn't simultaneously harboring a justice demon in my soul. It's annoying and doesn't make any kind of intuitive sense. The personas are supposed to be strengthened by my social links, not the other way around. The whole system's a holdover from the previous game, and I think it's supposed to make good dialogue choices rewarding, right? So you can accrue points faster knowing what NPCs want to hear. But that's terrible when you think about it for 2 seconds. Like, yes, there should be a reward for good dialogue choices. Like, duh. Right? But what does that actually look like? It means saying stupid crap my character would never say to people like the young mother. She wants you to say you hate kids here. Maybe she should check out my YouTube channel. Like, regardless of what I think, I wouldn't say that shit to someone whose kid I'm looking after. That's awful. It means correctly inferring all the Sherlock Holmes mystery clues in Naoto's social link, or else you're too stupid for Naoto. They really hate people who can't immediately pick up on esoteric riddles, dude. Just despise that kind of human being. You have to be perfect. You have to be everything. You have to be the fool. And yeah, it's your role. I get it, but you are not a character. You're a great vapid nothing in this game because you're a great vapid everything. And we love Narukami, but damn, he's a slate. Real blank-like. Good job, designers. And what that, picking sculpted dialogue options to maximize friendship and maximize efficiency, culminates in is the death of role-playing. Everything about the system rewards people using a guide. Very few breaks are given to newer players. You're not often rewarded for being honest or being yourself. It's bizarre. In terms of raw mechanics, you're punished for being yourself. Ultimately, there's no reason to be yourself. And it's kind of f***ed up in a game about accepting yourself. No, man, just be everything everyone else wants you to be. Clout grind, farm affection. Oh, they love that shit online. Writing this is making me kind of sick. I want to go back to the happy times. And if you'd like more genuine content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. No, but really, thank you for being here. It's not as dramatic as I make it out to be. Realistically, people are gonna pick what they pick or follow a guide, and nobody's getting hurt. It's a fun game and enjoyable to sit through regardless, and not a lot of people appreciate that real ambrosial RP business. P3 did all this too, just the time crunch was less palpable in my mind. It's fascinating how the issues I have with the system, you know, not being able to see point totals, for example, are asking the game to kill role-playing a bit, and arise from trying to play the game how it's begging me to. But of course it's set up that way. Persona's a mechanically minded JRPG, and community is tied directly to your acquired Persona's bonus experience. They need a reward for links, but not one so great that it punishes the player to a crippling degree if they miss out. So it all works, but you get the sense it's barely pinned together and ready to explode. And it's kind of a shame that the game doesn't want you lingering in dungeons for long. Screwing around for days on end will eat into your social stat and social link time, and that's half the game. You want to finish that stuff quickly. I don't even think you can properly complete Persona 4 without handling each dungeon in a single day. So let's talk dungeons and battles. The game no longer plays out in one defined location. Basically, the party learns early on that people who end up on the Midnight Channel end up dead in real life. It always coincides with prolonged periods of rain and the fog that sets in after. You'll notice someone goes missing, appears on the channel, and have until that fog rolls in to rescue the victim. That process can take a couple weeks, so you often have time to screw around in town doing social links and stats, totally ignoring the dungeon until the weather looks rough. But like I said, doing doing them in one day is ideal and fairly difficult on even normal mode, but that's all on you. It's doable and unnecessary. Now, you'll actually have to unlock most of them by doing a little small town investigation work, which I think would be fun because it's on theme and Inaba's not so big, but it kind of devolves into mashing through text boxes with every nameless NPC in a given place, so maybe they should have just opened. Dungeons reflect the individual you're attempting to rescue, like Yukiko's a pretty uptight person trying to let go and forget the expectations placed on her, so she gets a castle, and the Midnight Channel show she's associated with is like hunting for a prince or whatever. Trademark. Kanji gets his dude's only bathhouse. Naoto gets a laboratory. There's one guy who gets a Dragon Quest-esque dungeon. At the very least, they're all visually distinct and interesting. A clear step up from the previous game, but you'd expect that when you're keeping the procedurally generated layouts and really low variance. In short, it's all style, little substance. Not that I mind coming off 3, just noting before I go giving Atlas a handjob. Outside of cutscenes, the occasional gate that needs a specific key a la Resident Evil, random treasures, and sporadically finding your friends hanging around mid-dungeon, there's not a lot going on. You really stuck the double elongated barrel revolver Grim Reaper in a box. You warned me. I was warned. But maybe you can f*** off. They can be accessed later with new challenges if you're into that, but overall, they're not something you'd write an essay about. Combat's my main concern, however. The first thing I thought coming off the first dungeon was, dang, they really fixed everything. Just about. You still game over when the protag dies, and I still think it's totally idiotic regardless of its narrative value. It just makes the game less enjoyable. That's all it meaningfully contributes to combat, and in a game with swingy turns no different than P3 before it gets annoying sometimes, so you plan around that and pray you don't get crit. But the system's less swingy in general because action parity is no longer breakable. For people who don't know what I mean by action parity, I'm referring to how many total actions either side has access to in a given turn. And in 3, action parity was constantly breaking in somebody's favor because being knocked down forced the downed character to get up and miss their normal turn, like a one-turn stun. In 4, getting up doesn't waste a turn. Being downed only opens up the potential for getting dizzied and taking extra damage from certain attacks, and if you're the enemy, greenlighting an all-out attack like before. But the system's still broken in the party's favor, as it should be in random battles. You get all kinds of incidental benefits thanks to social links, from free attacks after an all-out attack, extra damage thanks to Risei, free knockdowns, free weakness scans, help getting up. A lot of additional stuff was tacked on that directly rewards the player for being a good friend, and I like that a lot, especially because they add to the drama, the ebb and flow of battle that Persona 3 captured so well on its first pass. They even allowed for party control, which I get probably sucked for the narrative designer, but it only made the thing more playable, and that's really the best case scenario. The only counterweight in the enemy's favor is the general increase in complexity. Enemies have more varied and devious ways to mess with the party, really damaging status ailments, greater numbers, and the potential for multiple combats to happen in the same battle screen. It can be sloggy and frustrating at times, especially if you're getting unlucky with crits, weak points, and status ailments, but it also highlights how useful your friends are, and how helpful their bonuses can be. I do think it's weird that instead of balancing for normal enemies to give good XP like in 3, because normal battles are set up to be challenging, most XP comes from these gold hand shadows that try to run away, just like metal slimes in Dragon Quest. But I always hated that design. It means I'm ignoring the other enemies like they don't even matter, because the game's admitting that they don't matter. I'd often ignore whole floors of enemies just to fight the hands, and by the way, XP gain is higher on easier difficulties, and Golden lets you swap at any time. So I'm not saying you should swap to easy just before fighting a hand to send your XP through the roof. I'm just saying, if you hate JRPG combat and just want the story, literally nothing is stopping you. Otherwise, the Persona system's largely intact. You grind a few up, fuse them together, pass some skills on. It's real easy to understand and fun. Reminds me of Dragon Warrior Monsters a bit. Yeah, that's right, I said warrior. But Igor, man, you've gone from professional to keeping strange women around, and now you're boozing it up in a limo? With 2 women? Yo, if you need to talk, coping's one thing, but I'm worried about you, man. Stronger personas will let you batter bosses down in no time, but even so, the mechanical complexity among tough enemies increased between entries. I outlined the first major boss in the last video, and several bosses have unique mechanics. Things like having to break down an outer shell before actually damaging the boss, having to defend and heal up at certain points or risk a wipe, having to deal with add-ons and status ailments. They get a lot more involved than the battles of 3, and I'm really grateful for it. I still think the average boss lingers chapters too long. It's a problem with mechanical JRPGs. The player will show mastery of a mechanic a minute or two into the fight. Then the fight drags out for 20 boring repetitive minutes because the enemy's a giant health sack with a gimmick, and that kind of design is mostly avoided, with frequent dramatic moments and interruptions, but it still happens on occasion. Mercifully, and especially in Golden, every party member is useful, and you can use whoever you want from start to finish. You don't even have to worry as much about weaknesses as you did in 3. People always put up tier lists for stuff like this, and I know I shouldn't read them, but I do, and it's always the dumbest shit imaginable. Like, Kanji is the worst character because he's mostly good at boss killing. Well shoot, were the random battles rolling you, dude? So they're all great. I get it's more delineated on higher difficulties, but I'm not a super fan, dude. I'm enjoying my 80-hour JRPG. Give me a break. You know what, let's talk about characters. You already got the short version, so we'll do it for real. You're introduced to Yosuke earlier than most, and true to his role in this story, backing up the protagonist, he's a versatile character. As versatile as his faults, which we already talked about, but every friend group needs the guy that mostly everyone hates. Chie's cool, she's a physical attacker, but her versatility puts her ahead of Kanji for most players, and her galactic punt is great. She's a sweet character, but sometimes it gets drowned out by—
I can't believe you guys! I'm having no part of this! I'm plugging my ears!
Now, I'm not comparing Chie to anyone in particular. Yukiko's relatable enough. I mean, not the heiress to an ancient inn thing, and definitely not the good spellcaster and mass healer thing. Most people only ever dream of doing one of those competently, and lots of people have all kinds of other problems, like being short. She complements Chie's shrieking well, though. Teddy's a character who— Rise's the character I keep forgetting about because she's a more versatile Fuka, and the game really wants you to feel good about yourself, so it hurls this mewling child at you and makes her real affectionate towards the protagonist. That's bait, and I ain't taking it. I bet she snores. I bet her reading comprehension is awful. I bet she counts ants. I bet she's weirdly bigoted about something totally incomprehensible to a normal person. I bet she eats puzzle pieces. Kanji's 15. Originally, I thought he looked pretty rough, but I couldn't help liking the guy by the end because his struggle to openly be himself resonated with me. I like musicals, man, and everyone gives me shit for it. And when Yosuke came in with the high rhetoric, if you will, I felt bad for the guy, and now he's my favorite boss killer. Good job, Kanji. Naoto's another victim of writerly mistreatment, but I understand the character. I too wish to be a 6-foot-tall, competent individual in a nice outfit. But unfortunately, I only ever hit 5'10". In the original game, she wasn't as useful. It was mostly resigned to random enemy killing, but in Golden, they're a decent all-rounder, and you'll want an item user by the end anyway. Plus, gun. If you've played this game, and I'm walking the line correctly, you'll want to add to those descriptions or contradict my dumber statements, and that's the thing. I thought all these guys looked so lame when I first saw P4 Arena years ago, but now they're irreplaceable. They get into you. You form this interesting bond with these characters that I think transcends what you had in 3. I love the adventures you go on, the time you spend. I imagine this is the ideal game for someone with no friends to pick up. It sells that fantasy so hard. Persona 4 is Inaba and your friends. They're the soul of the game. When I started this thing, you'll recall, I thought something was off, but couldn't quite place it. That's because Persona 4 does a lot of stuff I really don't like and don't understand, at least on paper. It fixes a lot from 3, but creates so many new issues. I'm super conflicted about the product, but I know where I stand on the experience, yeah? I loved every inch of the game, even the stuff that dragged, because Inaba's intoxicating. It's this saccharine little microcosm of safety and friendship, underpinned by mystery and fear. Even more than 3, the player comes to love the cast, I'd argue, because you're inundated with these sweet interactions and cutscenes. Dojima orders watermelon and your friends all come over on a warm day. You cook together with Nanako, take her places as a group. When that shoe kid has a lonely birthday, you bring your whole squad over. It hurts. It hurts so much. Setting aside that this is a group of friends made immediately aware of each other's issues that they accept and move on with. Setting aside that it's only natural you get scenes like this in a game about small town life, it's the purest, most enviable thing in the world. And I've had my good long friendships, maybe more than some. But man, with this game it's personal. When I think that I left all those guys in Korea with so much negativity because I was totally miserable during that year from hell, teaching alone in another country. When I think that all I did was perpetuate bad vibes when everyone else was busy having fun, it kills me. And if you're watching, James, Eric, Young Gun, Danny, George, anybody, I'm sorry. But I did it, man. I said I was gonna do YouTube and I fucking did it. No, not to put a damper on anything, but it's a little jarring going from funny mystery time to seriously considering pushing a major suspect into the TV. This is such a hilarious scene. It really isn't, but the contrast. It's genius! Oh man, we haven't even talked about the story yet. Well, let's put a wrap on it. And I am spoiling things, so you're gonna want to duck out if you're sold on playing the thing. I feel like there's a little too much "this makes no sense" and "this is an asshole" and other junk bloating games writing discussion in general, because people want to judge the value of a story by its broader coherency, which can be important, but it's far from the most important aspect of writing in general. If you've been following for a while, I've made it pretty clear how I felt about the subject, and if you haven't, the gist is this. Make your stories, so your plot, your themes, your narrative, all the moving parts, aligned as best as possible. That'll make it look smart anyway. It's a pretty loose guideline, and it helps when the gameplay ties directly into the stories of video games, so there's actually some point to using this particular medium. And all that stuff about artistic unity is only really for appearance. Some stories suck in tons of different ways, but that didn't stop him from making an unholy fortune. If you want a story to last, if you want a story to mean something, you're gonna need pathos, usually via memorable characters and dramatic moments. People don't remember your story, but they always remember the character they liked, and everyone's got that one dramatic scene they love from their favorite series. And since game writing itself is challenged by the process of game dev, much more so than, say, a single author with control over their script, as bits and pieces get delegated to different staffs, scenes get cut, etc., you gotta be at least kind of charitable to game stories. Taking all that into consideration, Persona 4 is a 60 to 80 hour JRPG. In case you're unsure, that means it surrenders any kind of pacing to daily school life and diversions. And the meat of the story itself is drip-fed and winding. Thankfully, it's a mystery. A mystery really is one of the best setups for an overly long game, especially when magic's involved. The writers get the benefit of creating a setting, planning a scenario, then squirting out little droplets of content over in-game months, introducing new characters, new complications, diverting your attention with side stories and secondary drama. It's hard to plan immediately, but with enough setup, really easy to work with going forward. It means that the downtime between major events is constantly charged with questions, but gives the player some breathing room. Even if you'd forget important details, because the game's a huge commitment, all the devs have to do is have the characters constantly repeat what they know. And it's never too much, because they're always one unknown premise behind the next reveal. Even if you're a little bad at juggling information, you should always be looped in. I've already gotten at least slightly emotional over the course of writing this, and at least twice in-game, with really strong opinions about some of the characters, so check the pathos box off. They nailed it. That just leaves drama and artistic unity. The game's a constant string of peaks and valleys in the main story. Even some of the social links and bonus cutscenes add worthwhile drama. The thing's packed with memorable scenes, even extraneous shit like visiting Persona 3's setting and getting drunk on atmosphere. Yeah. Thanks for killing everybody's buzz, Melvin. And the constant tactless stuff is all kinds of fun to sit through. I can't even believe I'm watching this. The raw plot is also fun to watch unfold between the killings, red herrings, tense moments, the murderer's reveal. If not for the constant spoilers in Persona 4 Arena, my hat probably would have spun 3 times on my head only for me to rapidly stand, slip on a nearby banana peel, and fall, splitting my skull on my extremely heavy microphone and dying instantly. Like, really? That guy? And you can get it wrong and just get the bad ending? I will say, the game kind of trips over its own dick, you know, having waved that character in your face since the start, having him constantly lead you astray with unprofessional breaches of confidentiality, and it does this by requiring an extremely specific set of dialogue options in order, with failure to do so resulting in the bad end. It reinforces my point from earlier that Persona 4 really doesn't care about your input and wants you to follow a guide, but still, for a reveal that juicy, I mean, I think the only letdown I had in the base game, not factoring in the true ending or whatever, is Dachi's motive. Like, don't get me wrong, I know this guy. Almost. There's all kinds of kids in small towns, at least where I'm from. They'll leave town, go to college or university, and come back with a pile of debt and hate their lives because the housing market's out of control. Things cost too much, their lives are constantly imploding from family drama or general lack of support, and you, as a friend, can't shoulder basically any of that because you're in more or less the same situation. People get bitter, small towns kill good people. Or if I weren't trying to sound smart, it's really hard to come out of life half decent. So yeah, I feel a little bad for the guy, but once he was done his cringe-inducing smirk fest and dropped a load of gibbering nihilistic crap at the end, I couldn't feel bad for the guy. Like, they could have given him any reason for doing what he did, and frankly, wanting sick magical TV entertainment might have been a better raw motive, you know. not backed up by the whole, wouldn't it be better if we were all just dead? Lol. Yeah, okay, two dumbass kids in a suit, you can come out now. What a joke. If he's so smart, maybe he shouldn't have stopped reading at 18. Christ. He's hard to appreciate. I remember saying that nothing mattered. Then I got older, and suddenly a lot matters. And it's just that simple. At least it's on theme. Game's largely about friendship, and Adachi has very little support, and neither you, his friend, nor Dojima, his boss, can really bring him around. He's in too deep. It's almost tragic. Then they undercut all of that with a healthy dose of sexual harassment and gross, simpering, manipulative rhetoric. He's such a disgusting person.
Those are actually 16. Okay. Adachi Sin, the 32nd, incorrectly identifies societal ills as caused by talent and not wealth disparity.
Buddy really hits you with the "we were the same but different" shtick, and there it is. No option to call him a creepy f***head, just generic shonen answer. So he's characterized well, ultimately. He pisses me off. He's got half a reason, but continued without thinking it through. Real Faustian folly shit. And he could have been saved at one point, but by the time the story rolls around, he's just too up his own ass, and you can smack him around pretty unsympathetically. I guess my only issue with Adachi is his reasoning, really. It sounded like it came from someone a full decade younger. Now, P4 has multiple endings. The bad, the good enough, and the truth. So to clear this up right now, I think the game ends just fine without the true ending. It's a little quick, but it's enough to cap off an adventure, largely about making family. But you know we went for the truth. The game uses Marie, the Golden Exclusive Edition, and her side dungeon to set up a... Wait, no, none of that matters. Golden tacked on an extra dungeon and extra story stuff that all happens prior to the end of the game. Basically, she's a social link sub-story that turns into a whole side quest, and the dungeon she's associated with really gets old because it's designed purely for mechanics and not as loose as other parts of the game, which might be cool. It's neat seeing what they did, but they locked it near the end of the game when the story's heating up, so I figure most players just felt annoyed by it. It doesn't help that Marie, a newcomer, has an off-putting and frustrating personality coupled with a mystery that ultimately goes nowhere. You figure she might have been a person, but no, she's a weird supernatural concept or something. So never mind about her. No, the true ending forces you multiple times to make weird, specific decisions that I imagine nobody gets on their first try. It's so easy to just head home on that final day instead of asking around town because you accomplished your goal, yeah? I've said before that you don't need to explain the how all the time. Midichlorians, power levels, taking away the mystery and quantifying it can really damage the magic in the eyes of some fans. That's why the game takes the time to explain the Midnight Channel, kind of. The fog, kind of. The presence of shadows and why Adachi could throw people into TVs. How they got their powers. Turns out some gas station attendant touched you at the start of the game, and the other guys. And doing so gave them all strange abilities because the gas station attendant was really a malevolent local deity, and like... That's not awful. Really? The concept's deeply rooted in Japanese myth and makes sense in a supernatural game, and it's even on theme for the small town mystery, right? A local threat instead of an existential one. It just feels too clean, too perfect. False. The mystery itself was fine, only in hindsight does the player realize there was no way to intuit most of the premises because they were largely magical, you know, outside the realm of human possibility. And man, they had you beat down that demon with the literal power of friendship? Come on! You know, this kind of stuff pretty clearly illustrates why some old Persona fans are frustrated with the new direction of the series. Golden, like you'd expect from any game labeled that, is lavish, garish, valuable, and impressive, but if the game taught me anything, it's life's about the little things. So, Persona 3 was a cleaner game in total, I think. It had its issues, but didn't take so many risks that it opened up unexpected vulnerabilities. Persona 4 is an amazing game. I put it directly in the lineage of Kingdom Hearts and other truly warm games to cure the cynic. That's something even 3 couldn't fully do, I don't think. Not with that incessant gloom. That epilogue really takes it home, too. The protag gets a chance to visit his friends again, and they're all moving on a bit, even pledged to keep changing. And I can't really think of a healthier thing to put at the end of your game. So many people get bogged down in what's familiar and what's easy, and you can't grow like that. I wept openly multiple times during the game because for all its cutesy dressing and overly idealistic perspective, it cuts so deep without being miserable. Its authenticity to the theme of community is inspiring. No matter what gameplay gripes or nitpicks I have, even good faith criticisms regarding its handling of vulnerable characters, it's one of the few genuine forces for good in gaming. Hey, it's KBash. Special thanks goes out to my $4 patrons, whose names are on the screen. The show's on its way somewhere good thanks to the community's generosity. And special thanks goes out to my extra generous patrons who are... A Dead Diehard, Alexa, Andy Blarg, Arch, Basement Dweller, BZ Soul, Boha, Brios, Cal, Can I Cuss on here? Caesar T, Cordant, Christo009, Cody Golden, Corgi the Lad, Couch MOBA, Crater, CW Glassworks, Kyle Lapreed, Daddy Dagoth, Dakota Storm Jones, Dondium, Danky Stank Swanky Make, Dara, David Castillo, Decode, Den Het, Dylan Coffee, 8-Bit Funk, Elias, LPO, Elsa, Annex, Aesthetico, Exa, Frankenstitch, Glyph Seeker, Guard Corey, Gucci Plant, Hatsune Miku's Crack House, Harkaj, Heman Gamin Station, Hexmex, Huey, Ingenious Clown, I Punched a Sandwich, Irradiated Cherries, Ice Kyle, Ivy Ruth Langley, Jason Lasky, Jaden, J-Deus, John Weber, Joke Frog, Keegan Too Cool, Clocked, Creighton, Crazy Dark Chocolate, Kais, Latrix, Laundry Mom, Lego Sid, Lawn, Low Fat Mogert, Lucas Boyd, Magical Madman, Marcules, Maximilian Wolfgang Niver, Mike DeVR, Milky Moo Official, Mr. Dodongo, My Pee-Pee is Hard, Niranu, Nito Torpedo, Old Burgle, Old Man Cranberry, Only LK, Gaplant, Pandemic Cowboy, PK Gaming, Potato Gaming HD, Quasar McDougal, Quillworth, Quinn, Reasonable Willow, Reggie Rodriguez, Sagitrash, Siren Smells Good, Salty Smasher, Sam Vertigo, Sekai no Awarida, Shad, Silver Bear 909, Simp God, Sleepy Wabbit, Space Lizard, Special Children, Spooky Grimalkin, Squishword, Starbound, Sublime Cataclysm, Super Katsanova, Super Sandwich Guy, The Big Bubby, The Salt Knight, Thick Dick Mystic, Thrips Heartrop, Timid the Writer, Travis Edwards, Trevingsley, Twiddle Chungus, V01156, Vid, Venom, Vice Pup, Viewers Like You, Vic, Waposa, Weeb Trash, Well Shit, Winter Solstice, Zanny Tanner, Yay Kundo, Young Citrus, Zachary Livesey, Zachary V, Zanaso, Zane the Impure, Zane the Pure, Zed Slayer Gamer, Zilvlin Ray, Zyberbunk. If you'd like to help support the show and make it even better, check out my Patreon. We've got all kinds of goals and lots of rewards in store. Stay tuned for more. KBash out.